Hare Krishna. So welcome to Corporate Bhagavad Gita. We'll continue from where we had stopped. That is 13th chapter. Before that, we'll go through the prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shivaya Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guroho Shukta Padakamanam Shri Gurum Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Savagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam. साद्वैतम सावधूतम परिजन सहितम कृष्ण चैतन्य देवम श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीन बंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्ते तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावन श्री विश्वभानु सुति देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय वांछाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Okay. So we had completed till 13th verse, 13th chapter, 4th verse we completed. So we'll go to the 5th verse. ऋषिवीर बहुधा गीतम छंदोवीर विविधै पृथक ब्रह्मसूत्र पदाश्चैव हेतु माद्भिर विनिश्चितै. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So Arjuna has asked this question about field of activities, knower of activities, the knower. These questions he has asked in the very first shloka. Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnana, and Nenya. Like that. So Krishna is answering all that. So he's saying that the field of activities and knower of activities is described by various sages in various writings. So it is there in the all of the various writings that are there in the Vedic literature, and it is especially explained in the Vedanta Sutra as to cause and effect. What is the cause? What is the effect? Or if there is some effect, there has to be a cause. Okay. So we'll get into the purport. These are very technical philosophy. So as and when I'll stop and explain. The Supreme Person of Godhead, Krishna, is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. So when Vedic scholars, when they speak, they give examples, they give references, okay, to the Vedic literature and what the previous acharyas and sadhus have said. So Krishna is also saying the same thing, that past sages, they have explained all this. So that's how a Vedic scholar teaches. He just doesn't tell what he thinks, but he tells what the previous acharyas also have said about that same topic. So Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and the super soul by referring to the scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as authority. First, he says this is according to different sages. As far as the sages are concerned, besides himself, Vyasadeva, the author of Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage, and in the Vedanta Sutra, duality is perfectly explained. And Vyasadeva's father, Parashara, is also a great sage, and he writes in his book of religiosity, we, you, I, the various living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. Now we have fallen into ways of three modes of material nature according to our different karma. As such, we are on the higher levels and some are on the lower level. The higher and the lower level exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the super soul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three modes of by uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature and is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between soul, the super soul, and the body is made, especially in the Katha Upanishad. There are many great sages who have explained this, and Parashar is considered a principal among them. So, the concept that we, you, and I, and various living entities are transcendental, and we have fallen into ways of three. We all the jivatmas, the living entities, are transcendental. They're spiritual in nature. When they come in contact with the material world has three modes: sattvagun, rajagun, tamagun. That's how one gets different types of bodies. And some bodies are higher, some are lower. Like some bodies are aquatics, reptiles, and some are higher, means devatas and human beings. That is all due to the ignorance. Okay, but there is super soul, which cylinder, sir. Just hold on 1 minute. Okay, sorry, some interruption. Okay, so but the Paramatma, it is not contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Okay, it is spiritual in nature. Now this concept is very important because there are some philosophers who say that when the absolute truth comes into this world, then he is affected by the three modes. But actually, that is not true. The absolute truth, the super soul, the Paramatma, is never affected by the three modes. And Vyasadeva and Parashara Muni given both have given evidences of how they are not affected. So it's a very important concept to understand. The word Chandobi refers to various Vedic literatures. The Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, which is branch of Yajurveda, describes nature, the living entity, and supreme personality of Godhead. As stated before, Kshetra is the field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetrajna, the individual and the supreme living entity. As stated in Taitra Upanishad, Brahma Pucham Patishtaha, there is a manifestation of Supreme Lord's energy known as Annamayi, dependence on the food for existence. This is the materialistic realization of the Supreme. Then the Pranamayi, after realizing the Supreme Absolute Truth in food, one can realize Absolute Truth in the living symptoms of life forms. I'll explain this. Let me finish this paragraph and then I'll explain. This is a very interesting points here. Jnanamaya. Realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, willing. Then there is Brahman realization, Vijnanamaya, in which living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from living entity himself. The next and the supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of all blissful nature. These are 5 stages of Brahman realization, which are called Brahmapucham. Out of these, the first 3, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, involve the field of activities of the living entity. Transcendental to all these activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. The Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying Anandamaya Bhyasyat. The Supreme Person Godhead is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he explains it to Vijnanamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, and Annamaya. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be enjoyer, and different from him is the Anandamaya. That means that if the living entity decides to enjoy endowing himself with the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is the real picture of Supreme Lord as the supreme knower of the field. The living entity as a subordinate knower and the nature of the field of activities. One has to search for this truth in Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. Okay. So very technical words have been used. First is Pranamaya. First is Annamaya. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya. So we'll go through all of this. Annamaya, Pranamaya, what is it? Jnanamaya. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya. Jnanamaya, Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya. So so when one takes birth as a baby, all the baby wants is what? Anna. Anna is what? Food. Okay. Whatever food we eat, we need it for our sustenance. So we say, right, that food is God. Have you heard about this statement? People say, like, Anna para Brahma. Food is God. Why they say? Because it is sustaining us. It is keeping us alive. So that is how we experience the Supreme, para Brahma. We understand the Supreme is sustaining me through food. So just as a baby only wants food, he is not considered anything else. Similarly, we are also looking for food, because it sustains us. Okay. Then Pranamaya. Pranamaya is absolute truth in the living symptoms or life forms. Prana means there are other beings and I have a relationship with them. Now again we'll take the example of baby. The baby understands sometime later, after say 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, that this person is my father, this person is my mother, these are my brothers, sister, etc. But when they born, they only focused on food. After some time they understand, okay, there are people around me. Similarly, we also have so many relationships, right? In family, outside of family, relatives, in the building, in the apartment, in the offices. And that is helping us to keep us happy and nourished, right? The relationships. So therefore, we experience the absolute truth in those relationships with other living entities. And Jnanamaya is one's own thinking, feeling, and willing. We want to do something in life. That feeling comes. Even in children, that feeling comes. Even in adults, that feeling comes. I want to do something in life. That thinking, that feeling, that willing. I want to do this, I want to do that. Okay. So that is Jnanamaya. That's where we experience the absolute truth in our life. I want to do, and then the absolute truth gives us that qualities, gives us that resources, ability. So then is how we experience. Now, most of the people are in these three mayas only. Okay. They are looking for food, they are looking for relationship, and they want to do something in life. Isn't it? So for their life is mostly into Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya. Our life is also into Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya. Now what is Vijnanamaya? Vijnanamaya means the word Vijnana. Vijnana means science. So here it is spiritual science. Here One is interested. One is interested in spiritual life. That is Vigyan. Not everybody comes to this understanding. We all have just started to know, okay, there is spiritual life. So we are interested. We are getting into it. But most of the people, do they get into this? No, right? We don't see that. And in Anandamaya, one is um, one is connected with Supreme in Bhakti. This is Anandamaya. It has two meanings. One is connected with Supreme, either in Brahman realization or in Bhakti. We'll take only for Bhakti. So here there is perfection of spiritual life, where one gets connected with Krishna in Bhakti. Okay, so this is how we experience Krishna in various ways. First is materially through food, anna, then other beings around us and the relationship through that, and then by our own thinking, feeling, willing activity. And then when we understand that, okay, we need to follow our spiritual life, that is where we become into Vijnanamaya. And when Vijnanamaya becomes perfect, we graduate to Anandamaya, where we are connected with the Supreme in Bhakti. Now, why all this information is given? Why all this information is given? It is mentioned here that the codes of Brahma Samhita Sutra are very nicely arranged according to cause and effect. Some of the sutras aphorism are Na Vidyat Ashruta, Natma Shrutet, and Paratu Tach Shrutet. The first aphorism indicates the field of activity, the second indicates the living entity, and the third indicates the supreme, Lord, the summum bonum of all manifestation of various entities. Now, why all this understanding is needed? Because most of the time we are in the first three understanding only. Okay, but there is more than that. That's where Vijnanmaya, Anandmaya comes and spiritual life comes basically. So that's why we need all this understanding. Okay. Any questions? Any question at this point? Okay. Mahabhutani ahankaro buddhir avyaktam evacha indriyani daishikam cha pancachendriya gocharaha ichchadesha sukha dukkham sangastascetanadrita eta kshetram samasena savikaram udharitam. Okay. Now in this body we have karmendriyas and gyanendriyas and various other things. So all this is the field of activities. Okay, we'll go to our diagram. Now we are in this body, the Atma is there, this body is there. Okay, so we are using this body to do certain things: eating, sleeping, mating, defending, walking, talking, thinking, doing something, right? All these things we are doing. We are happy, we are sad, we are joyful, right? We are sorrow. All these emotions are there. So all these are constituting what? The field of activities. What we do in this body. And this verse is telling in detail what all happens. The five great elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, the false ego, ahankar, meaning what identity we have. I am Indian, I am American, I am Mr. So and so, my family is lineage is the Sharmas or the Joshis or whatever. So that kind of identity is there in our body. When we are in this body, we get that identity. Intelligence. We want to do something using our intelligence, the unmanifested. Unmanifested. This is nothing but the Jivatma. The 10 senses. We have heard about 5 senses. How come there are 10? First is, there is Jnanendriya and Karmendriya. 5 senses which acquire knowledge. We get input from these senses like eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. And working senses, we do something with it like voice, leg, hand, anus, genitals. So that's how there are 10 senses. The mind. The mind is of its own, right? Like the mind is there in our body. Yeah? It's like the software it is there. But we cannot see it. It is like a software. We know it is there in our hardware, mobile and all that. The 5 sense objects. Desire, hatred. We desire something, we hate something, we are happy, we are distressed. The aggregate, all of this, the life symptoms, we are alive or we are dead or whatever, we are diseased, and convictions. Convictions means in this life, every person has a different set of integrity, set of belief system. All these things are field of activities and its interactions. So he asked the question, Arjuna asked the question, what are the field of activities? What happens in this body and all that? So all these things, above things happens. From all the authoritative statements of the great sages, the Vedic hymns and the aphorism of Vedanta Sutra, the component of this world can be understood as follows. First, there are air, earth, water, fire, air, ether. Our body is made of 80%. It is made of 80% of what? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. Do you know? Do you know? Water. It's made of 80% water. Then there are 5 great elements, Mahabhuta. These are what? Mahabhuta. 5 great elements. Then there is false ego, intelligence, unmanifested stage of 3 modes. There are 5 senses. This is kind of software. And the 5 senses are like the hardware. The printer, the keyboard, the mouse, kind of thing. So there is acquiring knowledge. 5 senses for acquiring knowledge. What are those? Those are input to our body. Like through the eyes we see, the ears we hear, nose we smell, tongue and skin. And when we get those inputs, we react in a particular way. Then 5 working senses. Voice, legs, hands, anus and genitals. We work them, we use them. Voice we speak, legs and hands we walk and we do something. Anus we remove the dirt in our body. Genitals are used for procreation. Then the above senses, there is mind which is within and which can be called the sense within. So this mind is the software. Mind is the software. I'll show you. Everyone today uses a computer, right? Everyone uses computer. What is happening on the screen? The eyes are watching. The voice is telling. The hands are using. There is a printer. There are systems to it. Where are we? Now the aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activities. If one can make any analytical study of these 24 subjects, then he can very well understand the field of activities. Then there is desire, hate, happiness, distress, which are interactions, representations of the 5 great elements. Now, all these elements, when they come together, there is desire. I want to do something. I want to get that thing. Hatred, happiness, distress, all these emotions, they come. So they happen when all these 24 elements combine. Okay. The living symptoms represented by consciousness, convictions, and manifestation of subtle body, the mind, ego, intelligence. These subtle systems elements are included in the field of activities. So all these are included in the field of activities. The five grades elements are gross representation of the false ego, which in turn represent the primal stage of false ego, technically called the materialistic conception or tamasa buddhi, intelligence in ignorance. Thus, this further represents the unmanifested stage of the three modes of material nature. The unmanifested modes of material nature are called pradhan. One who desires to know more about the 24 elements in details along with the interactions should study the philosophy in more detail. In Bhagavad Gita, summary is only given. All these 24 elements, this is called Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya. Sankhya means counting. So here we are counting. Are we the eyes, nose, ears, and all that? All that has been thought about. And then conclusion is made, no, we are not that. Like this. So it's the Sankhya philosophy. And in its interactions, study the philosophy in more detail. The Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavad Gita, only a summary is there. The body is the representation of all these factors. And there are changes of the body, which are 6 in number. The body is born, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, and then it begins to decay, and the last stage it vanishes. Therefore, the field is non-permanent material thing. However, the Kshetrajna, the proprietor, is different. The knower of the field is different. Okay, so this body goes through many changes. First, it takes birth. It grows. Then it produces byproducts. See, the body grows from childhood to boyhood to adult, then it decays, and then it gets destroyed. This is the phenomenon. We know it happens to everyone. Devotees, non-devotees, both are like that. Okay, now the question is, what about knowledge? What is knowledge? So this is the one of the longest purports in Bhagavad Gita. So this is the whole section is about knowledge. What is knowledge? What is not knowledge? So let me read the shloka. Amanitvam, adambhivitvam, ahimsa, shantir, arjavam, acharopasanam, shauchyam, sthairam, atma vinigraha. Indyarteshu vairagyam, anahankara evata, janma mittu jara vyadi, dukkha doshanu darshanam, ashaktir anabhis vangaha, putradara grahadeshu, nityam sa samachitvam, इष्टानि तो पपित्सु मयि चाण्य योगेन भक्तिर अभ्यचारेण्य विविक्तदेश सेवित्वम आरतिर जन संसिद्धि अध्यात्म ज्ञान नित्यात्वम तत्व ज्ञानार्थ दर्शनम एताज ज्ञानम इति प्रोक्तम अज्ञानम यद अतो अन्यथा. Okay. This is so now whatever we are going to read in this sloka from here to here, Krishna says, I declare that to be knowledge, and whatever apart from this list is ignorance, is darkness, it is material. So we can say this is spiritual knowledge, and then whatever apart from that is material knowledge. In material knowledge, everything comes like physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, zoology, finance, economics, astrology, astronomy, everything related to the body. Everything related to the spiritual life is considered to be spiritual knowledge, and that's the knowledge Vijnana Krishna is talking about. Okay. First, humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, Perception of birth, evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. Detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest. Even mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me. Aspiring to live in a solitary place. Detachment from general mass of people, accepting the important self realization and philosophical search of the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever may be is ignorance. This is the list of knowledge, Vijnana, that Krishna is talking about. This is what we all need to do. We all need to acquire. This is the list. Somebody in spirituality have to follow this list. Okay? Any questions this point before we move? Okay. The process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent men as being interaction of field of activities. Okay. Interestingly, the very previous verse, people think this is knowledge. Because we are looking for what? We are looking for happiness, desire, okay? But instead we get this hatred, distress, other kinds of problems. Hmm? So people are very much focused on these aspects of life, which is nothing but the material aspect of life. When they focus on the spiritual aspect, then this is the list. This whole thing is the list. If one accepts this process, then the possibility of approaching the absolute truth exists. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements as described before. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is the casing made of 24 elements, and the process of knowledge as described here is the means to get out of it. Of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Mai chanan me yogena bhaktir abhicharenya. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotion service to the Lord. Okay. Okay. So this is the list. This is the whole list in which there is Ananya Bhakti, engaging in 9 processes of Bhakti, okay, or engaging in Bhakti in general. Engaging in Bhakti is spiritual life. Everything, all this list should end up in engaging in Bhakti. So if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no practical value. So one may be spiritual, but if one is not doing bhakti to Krishna, then it's considered waste of time actually. It's a lost opportunity. Can you tell why it's considered lost opportunity or what? Any thoughts on that? Anyone wants to say? The thing is, one may not get liberation. Okay? One may do all the activities except for bhakti. One will not get liberation. Mukti won't come that easily. So then, one's spiritual life has not been successful, right? Spiritual life is successful when we get mukti, when we get liberated. But if bhakti is not done, no liberation. So that's why just being in 19 other items doesn't mean that we will be able to achieve success. Very important point is we need to this have this bhakti. Okay, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. So where it is written, we need to have bhakti. Krishna is mentioning it as one of the point. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, this particular verse says, Yasasti bhaktir bhagavati ankinchana sarver gunes tatra samadhate sura. All the devatas and the exalted qualities such as religion, knowledge, renunciation become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva. On the other hand, the person devoid of devotion service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. So he may have this whole list. This whole list he may have. But Bhagavatam says that if he doesn't have bhakti, then technically he has no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga, honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he may be expert in mystic yoga, he may be expert in varnashram dharma, but he is still driven by his own mental speculation and must engage in the service of the Lord. How can there be any good quality in such a person? Okay. All good qualities of knowledge develop is one who has attained the stage of devotion service. The principle of accepting a spiritual master, as mentioned in the eighth verse, is essential. Even one who takes devotion service, it is important. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. Spiritual life begins when we accept a spiritual master, Guru. The Supreme Personality Sri Krishna clearly states that this process of knowledge is the actual path. Anything speculated beyond this is nonsense. So in this whole list, there was no mention of physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, finance, economics, right? Astrology, astronomy. So those are the knowledge by which we can live nicely in this world. Okay, therefore those things are called as material knowledge. Material knowledge means that knowledge by which the matter, our body is sustaining, is living happy. What we are talking here is spiritual knowledge. Now I have a question for you. If it is said that it is nonsense, should we even try it? The material knowledge is said to be nonsense. Should we even try it? What is your thought process? Any thoughts? Should we give up material knowledge altogether? Yes? What do you think? No. The answer is no. We need not give. So then what to do of this material knowledge? So here, there is another Upanishad which says, Vidyamsa avidyamsa. Yes. Tad vedo bhayam saha. Avidyaya amrityam tivra. Vidyantaram ashnute. Only one who can learn the process of nations and that of the transcendent knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. So whatever material knowledge we have and whatever we are spiritual knowledge that we are gathering, here it is said we have to do it side by side. So we should not give one for other. Hmm? We should learn both. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So let's get into the long purport. As for the knowledge outlined here, the items can be analyzed as follows. Humility. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. Humility means, one should not be anxious to be honored. Like wherever we may go, if you think I am the senior most person here, or I am senior to the senior most, and there are a lot of juniors in this place, okay, so then the quality of humility, it attracts the Lord, that this person is not at all interested in the material happiness or prestige. That is humility. Okay. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. Nowadays, we are looking at us for uh, okay, we'll read this section and we'll then discuss. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others, but from the point of view of a man of perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything honor, dishonor is all but for the body. One should not be hankering after material deception. People are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently, sometimes it is found that without religious understanding, okay, one should not be anchoring after this material deception. Honor is actually material deception. Honor means we are expecting respect. Like if we go to some place, then okay, okay, I have something coming up. Sorry. Can we end now? Can we end now? 15 minutes earlier. Is it okay with you?